welcome back to the shop, guys. Today I have a 2009 Ford Escape with a 2.5 liter dual overhead cam engine in it, and we're going to be doing a valve cover gasket on it. It's leaking quite a bit, seeping quite a bit on the back side here where the exhaust manifold's at, and the reason why it leaked back there and up here it's nice and clean is because you've all that heat emanating up from the actual exhaust manifold back. They try their best to shield it, keep it down, but it comes up and it makes that gasket rock hard over time, and therefore it doesn't have that pliability and seeps oil. So we're going to be changing that out. This procedure is pretty much the same. Torque specs, torque sequence, removal, installation, it's all pretty much the same for the 2.3 liter dual overhead cam and of course the 2.5 liter dual overhead cam. And these came out in 2005, the 2.3 did, that this is based off of. So from basically 2005 to current, this procedure applies. Now before starting this job, I want to make sure the top of the engine here is as clean as possible, so when you open that cover, we're not introducing a bunch of debris into the engine. It's not good. Usually it's going to be a lot of sand and dirt and grit, and that's definitely not good for the engine. So we're going to blow it off. No matter how clean it looks, make sure you blow it off on there and getting all the little crevices in here with a nice little air wand. Do whatever you can to get all this out of here. And then once these coils are out here and some other components, we're going to clean it again before we actually unbolt it and lift it off. Alright, so over here above the throttle body, right here, there's a vacuum line that goes out and feeds the booster and all that. Make sure you clean around this really good. And then I like to even use a bit of brake clean and really clean some of these connections on here. Now the way this hose comes out, and you do have to take it off of there because it just gets in the way of pulling off the valve cover and setting it back down. So what we're going to do is you take your cat claw or flathead screwdriver. There's a red tang right here. It's a circle that goes all the way around. You're going to push down on it while you push in the hose, and then you should be able to pull it right out of there. Okay, so these are not too bad. A few connections here. Get the coils out of the way, unbolt it, and it lifts right off of here. So we're going to get right to it, and you kind of just follow along as I take things apart on here. I'll name stuff off and the bolt sizes and all that. So we're going to get the coils off of here first and foremost. They're 8mm bolts. And if I didn't mention it already, we should be working on a cold engine here. Disconnect all the connectors for the coils. And you don't need to keep these coils in any certain order or anything. Just get these bolts out here right now, off to the side, so there's no chance of them going down to the engine. And these simply pull up and out of here. You kind of want to grab the coil and the boot at the same time. The best you can. Get them out of there. And then we're going to disconnect the cam sensor right here, the radio interference capacitor right here. We got to unbolt that here in a second. We'll get to that. Start putting all these harnesses back like this and tuck them away. And this right here is the CHT sensor. You want to pop that up and out of there. It's just a little boot that pops into the valve cover there. Pull it back so you can see a connector inside, and there's a gray tang on it. Just push it in, locking tab, and then it'll pull right up and out of there like that. Again, take this harness, put it off to the side here so it's not in our way. And I like to even pull the injector connectors also so I can get the harness fully out of the way. And we're putting a new gasket and everything back down. We're not fighting a harness and messing up the job and causing a bigger leak. So we'll just get it out of the way to start with here. You're going to want to get your PCV hose off of here. It's your ventilation hose for it. There's just a little release clip on it. Release it and pull off. Swing it out of the way. These harnesses out of the way. They're just all over the place here. I do different things to get them to stay out of the way also. You just find what works best for you. And then over here you should be able to see the VCT solenoid right here. You can see the connector for it. Unclip that and follow along over to here. Grab it and manhandle it. It's like a little T and it sticks into the valve cover stud. That's your main power wire for the alternator back there. Get that loose and this one loose. Now this radio interference capacitor right here is going to block your way of pulling the valve cover off. So there's a 10mm nut right here. You'll see it. I'm going to take that off. Get the nut out of the way. And the capacitor might pull back the little insulator on the valve cover or the fuel rail there. So you can get it out of there. Okay. And now what I like to do is unclip the harness from right here where it clips onto the fuel rail bracket and stuff like that. Unclip it, and of course right here where it clips into the valve cover, you'll see it. Get it off of there best you can. This plastic's gonna get brittle over the years. Just try to get it off without breaking it. This one's doing alright actually. Okay, and once they're out of the wire retainers like that, we can really pull it back like that and out of the way. There's one right here, you'll see right here, okay, and that's holding the harness too. Same thing, up, out of the way. And do something like this where you wrap it around the outside here of the lifting bracket, stuff like that. Get these guys under like this, and out of the way. Look at that, look at all the room now to get in here. Get this one out of the way, and the whole valve cover is nice and free now. Okay, good enough. Everything's out of the way. Everything's pulled off. Don't pull the cap off or this off just yet. We're going to do another cleaning, and you might even want to use that brake cleaner around some of these areas and then blow dry it like I like to do also, just to make sure it's clean as possible. And look at that, just a few minutes of cleaning and pulling harnesses out of the way, and this thing's ready to come off of here. All these bolts and studs, everything on here should be 8mm, and I think they're the cage style where they will not fall out into the engine also. So there's no detorque sequence on here. I like to just jump around just to kind of, detorque it evenly because it is plastic. And an impact like this makes it a lot easier. Don't forget these ones in the middle here. Jump around. Now once you're absolutely positivo that you've gotten all these bolts loosened, we can start prying at the gasket surface between the cover and the head to try to pop it up on there. And just work it around on the outside there, anywhere you can. It's going to be really hard to get it off of there, so just be persistent because like this one, it's got a lot of miles on it. It's going to take a while. Now you may need to resort to a mini pry bar or something like this and get it right in this area right here. You can see it right there and pop up on it like that. Stuff like that. There's another spot right back here. But just watch out, right here is the fuel line. It's a plastic fuel line that goes to the metal fuel rail, so you don't want to crack that. So just be really careful of the fuel line right there. Now, once it's loosened, you can pull our dipstick out. And then once one side is up, you don't need to start prying the rest of it. Usually you can grab pieces like this, grab this part, and shake it and pop it up along the way. And I think that's the best way to do it on here. Now once all the ends are loose, I like to pick it up evenly, mainly because of the VCT oil seal right there. You don't want to cock that in there and ruin that too. Okay, pull straight up like that. Alright, now first thing, what you want to do, besides inspecting it, I guess, is to get all this garbage off the outside here. There's still going to be some on there, and you want to wipe like this to the outside so you don't carry that grit into the engine on there. And clean up, you know, starting off clean up, and the clean up before we put the gasket on is the most important part of this, so you might as well do it and do it right. You can see what's leaking back here. Get the initial amount off, and we can come back and brake clean and all that later on. Okay, so with our valve cover on the ground, upside down, we can start picking out the gasket with something like this. See, it's like a little hooked pick like that. And we'll get the center out first. It's usually the most pliable. This isn't so bad. Get that out to the side. These usually don't have an issue with breaking off or anything like that. You might see it on the back side of the cover, but for the most part, these should come right out. This one's a little hard. So this is the back side of the cover over here, so we're going to test that hardness compared to the front here. Let's see how pliable the front is. Not bad. And it just lays into there. It's an inlay gasket. Let's see how hard it is back here. Oh yeah, it's definitely getting hard right here and right here. But it's not the worst I've seen. I've seen where they're so brittle they break off right in your hand. So that's nice. The whole thing actually just came out off to the side, and then we can start the cleanup process on here. Now all this oil inside of here, for the most part, you can leave it. You know, clean up the channels here so they're not full of oil. What the gasket goes back into. Okay, obviously. And then the outside edge here, you want to make sure there's no dirt being introduced, so wipe outwards, obviously. And then we're going to come back and we're going to get the channel where the gasket actually goes into. So there's not fluid pushing it out of there when we're trying to lay it down into the head like that. Now you see its edge in here on the outside where it's just right at that edge of the sealing surface. I like to clean that up too, just so there's nothing getting in between the sealing surfaces on there. And we can clean the rest of this cover later on if you really want an engine looking pretty. But right here, that's the area you want to concentrate on. Now the gaskets I like to use over anything else are the Ford gaskets. They're a little bit more expensive, but I've never had a comeback with these gaskets either. So I'll put the part number down there in the description and link to it on Amazon. It's usually the cheapest place, even cheaper than I can get them from the dealer with my discount. So I go to Amazon for most of my stuff. Open it up. And all these gaskets are inside of here. They got the 3 in the middle here, and you get the big one on the outside. So they are keyed in here a certain way, and you can see that right on here. Gotta kind of follow it. Okay, try to stay off frame there. What you want to do is lay it all in there, especially the big one. Lay it all in there in general, okay? And then we can start pushing it down. You want it to be evenly placed in there, not bunched up to one side, because this stuff is flexible. Do it like that, and you see it comes out perfect. Now this one has the little nub on it right here, the little jut out right there. You see that for the bolt right here, so that one obviously goes here. A little bump out there. And these just fit so perfect in there. Once you use the Ford gasket, you'll probably never go back to anything else. Now, if you can't find a Ford gasket for whatever reason, you don't want to spend the money, you can use Fel Pro. I'll link to both down below in the description. Those are the only two gaskets I would ever use, though. It's Fel Pro and Ford. Now, when you're placing these gaskets back in, they're so long and there's so many curves in them. What I like to do is there's this little part right here. You see it's a little thicker. That's where it goes right here for that front cover, where the valve cover and the cylinder head and all that, they all meet together at the front cover. So you want to get that lined up and then line up the other one, because right on the other side here is going to be the same thing. So, okay, there it is. And just make sure everything lines up down here. Okay. And everything's right. And once you know that's right, then the rest of it will just fall into place. And I do the same thing for this. I make sure everything's placed in here just a little bit and lined up, and then I push it all the way in. So you get the most even spacing on there. You see, I just a little bit, start getting all your angles lined up. Everything's looking good. These ones need to get lined up yet. That one, that one, that one, and that one. And of course this one will line up, and then fully insert it. And once they're all the way in, review it, make sure everything's fine, looks right, and then go over it once more to make sure it's pushed down all the way, else it's going to squish out weird and it's going to leak. We don't want that, so we're just going to check it again, take a few seconds, and do it right. Now, as far as cleaning the gasket surface, use brake clean on a rag and clean it very, very well, pushing out like I said before. That should get most of the varnish up on the actual sealing surface. Any kind of corrosion or dirt that's on the outside here that isn't too bad, you don't need to touch it. You can see from the line on here where the old sealing surface is. So this whole area right here is perfectly clean and smooth, and that's all that really matters. Up here by the front cover and the timing sprockets and all that, there's me glue right here because there's a front cover and here's a cylinder head where they meet together right here, and the valve cover goes over the top of that, so they got a dab of sealant right here that's dried up on there. Now the other side came off, but most times they're just like this, they don't come off. So what you're going to want to do is scrape them going out like this, and you can put a rag down inside of here if you feel more comfortable, but these little pieces, if they do get down, ain't gonna be the end of the world. But yeah, definitely scrape out, obviously. Something like that. You see that? Just be extra careful. Don't want to gouge it up with your scraper. And look at that. And now it's ready for some brake clean and a rag. Same thing. It'll wipe out. And that joint's all ready. Alright, so going back in, everything's clean on here. The valve cover's clean. Right here, okay, and right here, you want to put the black sealant on there, the engine sealant. And what I use is the Chrysler stuff just because I have it on hand. But what I recommend is the Permatex Ultra Black. And when it goes on there, it's going to go right about here Okay, you put a little dab of it right there, and the same thing right here. I'll probably get you a close-up of that real quick. I'll bring you in close so you can see where to put that sealant at. Right there's one. Okay, you see it right there? That little T-joint. And then over here, there's another one right there. And you'll see the line where the front cover meets the cylinder head on there. You don't need too much, it's gonna squish out on there and fill it anyways, so. And just simply lay it back down as straight as possible while holding these harnesses out of the way. Get them underneath here, because you don't want to smush that sealant and slide it around. You just want to go straight down. Get up and out of the way. This harness out of the way. There we go. And then just start threading these by hand. And once you're threading by hand, couple all over the place like this, it'll line everything up for you. You'll be able to feel the threading in properly also. Get this one. Get it all the way down. A 1/4" ratchet to get these started is the best bet. Your best bet, because you'll still be able to feel if you're cross-threading or not. The one thing you want to make sure at this point in time is that you're not pinching any connectors or harnesses down under the valve cover gasket. That happens more often than you think. And unless you're experienced and you know the feel of when the cover's on, you can be tightening these down right on top of the harness, and that's never good. At this point, we need to tighten it down in sequence. You can follow along, or there'll be a sequence picture down below in the description, so you guys can print it out and reference it for yourself there. It's 89 inch-pounds, so just follow along. It's always going to start from the center and go out. 1, this is 2. Okay, this is 3. Four. Hopefully you can see all that. Okay, this right here is 5. This is 6. This right here is 7. And this is 8. This right here is 9. 10. 11. And over here is 12. 13. And 14. I think this is the last one. Now, we obviously went in order, and you don't have to do this, but what I like to do after this, when it comes to gaskets and sealing surfaces, is to go over them in any order you want, and just recheck them. You know, make sure in case it's settled or whatever, that it's still fully tightened down, torqued. And usually it's okay. It's only certain vehicles where you'll find a loose one. This one, obviously, they're all clicking first off. Jump around, just to check them, just to make sure. Now, if you were in here because there was oil down to the spark plug wells and causing misfires, what you want to do is make sure you replace the boots, most likely. If you're really on a tight budget, you can just clean them, as long as they're not too swollen down there at the tip. And, of course, clean out the spark plug well. And put a little bit of dielectric grease on the end of the coil boot here. And then slide them back in. Like I said, there's no particular order for these. And we can start reassembly at this point. You don't have to wait for anything to dry with the valve cover gasket. And you can either skip ahead or follow along. I'm just going to be reassembling all these connections and coils and stuff like that. Get them down in there, make sure they're dry and clean. A little bit of dielectric grease on the tip of the coils, and just bolt them back down. I think the torque spec for these, if you really want to know, is around 89 inch-pounds also. But I just snug them down. Getting this harness back onto here. Start getting things lined back up. Now, because it's probably the most accessible right now, I would probably put the radio interference capacitor back on. Get that on there. And the 10mm nut. And it's going to be a little tricky getting in here with the insulator. Center it like so. There we go. Tighten it up. You can lay our harness back in place here and just simply start connecting each one of these till they click just like so. Just about all of these connectors are different, so it's kind of hard to mess them up. Get your harness back into its bracket where it clips in. Okay. Cam sensor, capacitor, our last injector here. Got all 4 of them on there. This one's on there. Put your harness back here, right here. Should be able to see that still. Got our connector for our coil right here. That one. And the harness connects right here also to the valve cover push pin. There we go. Get our ventilation hose clipped back onto here. Let's give it a little wiggle and clip. A little tug, okay. And we'll do this connector next. Until it clips in, and just make sure this boot for this connector for the CHT sensor is fully snapped in all the way around, and then we can do this one. Dipstick back in. Okay. VCT solenoid. Get our power wire back into the stud there. There we go. And then back here, same thing. Get your harness on there first, and then your power cable goes on top of that. Everything should lay right back into place. It's kind of how you know you didn't miss anything. In case you took off the harness connector from the stud back here, the locating pin, put it back on. Let's get our vacuum line back in, clean it really quick, and then stick it back in that red port. Give it a little tug after it's fully inserted to make sure it won't come out. Okay, we're good with that. And then just go over your connections one more time. Make sure they're fully clicked in. You don't want this thing popping out going down the road and your misfires and you pull over the side of the road and all that. Make sure your harness is attached in the same places. Just give it a quick look over. You'll see anything you missed pretty easily usually. Now once everything's back together, give it an hour or so for that sealant we put on there. There's 2 dabs you put on there to fully dry, and then you can go ahead and start it and check for leaks, stuff like that. I would say at least an hour or more to really let it cure in there. That's it, all done. It's that simple to change a valve cover gasket on one of these. Basically you pull some stuff off and it's right there and just pulls right out. But I figured I would film it because it covers a lot of different model years and a few different models also, and it can help a lot of people out, especially because these vehicles are starting to become to the point where, you know, they're getting high mileage on their gaskets are going to get hard and they're going to start to seep and leak. And like I said, if they leak on the exhaust manifold, it can cause fire. So it's not nothing to play around with. If it's this simple, you might as well change it, not to mention when it starts burning oil off in there, it sucks right into the interior of the vehicle, all those fumes for you and your family to be breathing. So you might as well just take care of it a little bit of time. And if I wasn't filming, this would probably take me 15 minutes to do. That's how easy they are.